Hello, biology. Sorry I could not be with you to go over my course syllabus or essentially my class rules, but for obvious reasons, I can't be. I could have waited a couple weeks to give you the syllabus, but I really would like you to have an understanding of what the class is going to be like, and you shouldn't necessarily have to wait 2 weeks to do that. You should have the biology syllabus. Please make sure that it's biology and not apes or AP environmental science, as they look a lot alike. This will be your copy to keep. If I say anything in this video that elaborates or expands on information that's actually in the syllabus, because you get to keep this, you might choose to take some notes on it. But just know that anytime throughout the year, you can ask me questions about this. But essentially, if it ever comes down to a behavior issue or an academic issue, I always go back to the syllabus because you must sign this. This is my class rules, and you must return this signed also with a parent signature. Okay, so let's go over this. First part is just basically my personal information. Let's see, I graduated from Sac State with a biology major in conservation biology. And obviously, that's what enabled me to teach this class. In addition, I had taken a whole bunch of geology classes just simply because I was interested in them. And my counselor convinced me to spend an extra semester completing a minor in that. And I'm really glad that I did that because it is what enabled me to get the job at Rio. I was hired to teach earth science and biology. And if I wouldn't have had that background in the earth sciences, I wouldn't have been able to get the gig. And thank goodness I did. Since then, they have eliminated the earth science class, which is kind of a bummer. It was a really fun class to teach, and they have integrated that content into biology, chemistry, and physics. Let's see, I did get my teaching credential from Chapman University. And that's what enabled me to get into the classroom. And then about 3 years after I started teaching, I decided I wanted to get my master's, and I received that from National University. I am blessed to have the opportunity to spend my career with young minds. I really enjoy being in the classroom. I really enjoy the opportunities presented to me to inspire kids to become good citizens. Of course, it makes me, I'm recording a video, sorry, close the door, sorry. Um, really gives me an opportunity to impress upon my students' morals, and hopefully I inspire some of you to go on and look into science in college and or career. I really relish those opportunities to try to teach you guys how to be good stewards of this planet, and I really enjoy being in the classroom. Grades. You can check your grades on the portal 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. My grades are pretty straightforward. I do pluses and minuses. This actually, I forgot to change. I'm actually lowering my pass fail grade down to 54.5% as a D minus. And depending on the school year, I might even lower it down to 50%. Just kind of depends on what the other teachers are doing, kind of depends on how well I think I did delivering the content. A lot of that depends on how hard the actual students who are maybe not going to pass the class worked. If they deserve a little flexibility, I always reserve the right to lower that, but I will never go below 50%. Typically in my biology class, about a third of my students will have higher than 86, 87%. Many of you that are really good students and very organized, many of you will even have over 100%. Some of you may not even have to take the final. If you have 97 percent or higher with no extra credit, and there are some extra credit opportunities in this class, you will not have to take the final. You will earn your A plus, and you can either get your parents to call the attendance office, and you won't have to come to school. Although typically we have parties after the final, but you'll basically just get to read a book or doodle, or play on your phone, maybe in a different room while everybody else is finishing up their finals. So I encourage you to work very, very hard and maybe be one of those few students at the end of the semester that doesn't have to worry about that. I use a straight points system. So, for example, if there are 100 points and you've earned 85 of them, you get a B. And extra credit does not count towards your points. So, for example, if you have 85, but you got 2 points extra credit, it would still be out of 100, but it would be an 87. So, the closer you get to that 80, 90% margin could get you a B plus and or even an A minus. Citizenship grades. Pretty much everybody starts off with an A. There are really only 2 to 3 ways that you can lose a citizenship grade. If you have excessive tardies, I give 5 free tardies. If you have more than 5 tardies and I have to give you a detention, or if I have to give you a Saturday school, if you get past 10, you could lose a citizenship grade. I'm pretty strict on cell phone use. As a matter of fact, when I come to the classroom, there will be many days where I will be taking your phones from you. I have buckets on the tables. You'll put your phones in the buckets. I'll put all the buckets in a big stack up in the front of the room where everybody can see them and know that I'm not going near them and no student is going near them, and then you'll get them back at the end of the period. There are many days where we're taking notes, maybe, where I will allow you to have access to your phone. So the phones will be in the buckets, but I'll simply put a top on the bucket, and you have to keep your hand out of the bucket unless you need to take a picture of the notes. So I'm pretty hardcore when it comes to that. Students typically don't like that policy, but there's lots of biology teachers on this campus. Go take a different one. But it really helps students focus on what we're doing in class and not worry about what's going on their phone. So if you get caught once, you get a warning. If you get caught more than once, you will get a referral, which usually will end up in a Saturday school. If you got a really good reason and you can talk me out of it, maybe I'll let you do a detention. But pretty much don't use your phone. You shouldn't be using your phone. Behavior. If you get caught cheating and it's big, like on a big lab, or especially if it's on a test, that also could reduce your citizenship grade. Okay, hall passes. Hopefully the sub has mentioned to you that there is a process. Over by the window, there's a laminated hall pass. You just simply go fill out that pass with your full name, date, and time. There's a clock right there. You'll go use the restroom or run to your locker. You'll have 5 minutes. I keep track. I write down the time every student leaves the room, and I look at the clock when they come back in the room. If you're gone for 7 or 8 minutes and you have a good reason, just simply stick around after class and mention it to me. Or if I'm not busy talking to the class, come on up and say, hey, the bathroom was shut. I had to go down to the junior, senior hallway to use the restroom down there. As long as you're not giving me an excuse time after time after time, I'm cool with that. Okay. But I do reserve the right to give you a detention if you're out for longer than 5 minutes. Then you bring the pass back. You dab a little paper towel if it's not already wet. You wipe off all those pen marks and then you dry it off and get it ready for the next person. You get to use the bathroom 10 times, or the pass 10 times in a semester. After that, I will allow you to do lunch detention if you need to use the restroom further than that. Of course, if you have issues, medical issues that require you to leave the classroom more often than that, simply get your doctor to communicate with. They probably should communicate with the school in general, but let me know if that's something that you need. Like I said, you get 5 free tardies. I kind of keep this on the down low. The school policy is 2. I'm on the back of campus. Now, if you're a freshman, and many of you are freshmen, on occasion I'll have a sophomore or a junior in my class. Your locker is not very far from my classroom. So honestly, there should be no reason for you to be late. I mean, those 2 wings, the sophomore and freshman wings, their lockers are on the back of campus. But I give people 5. Okay, so maybe you're coming all the way from the front of the campus, or maybe you're coming from PE, whatever the case may be. I give people 5 free ones because I am on the back of campus and there are many walks across campus that can take longer than 5 minutes. Best case scenario for you is if you know you got to get to my class and you're on the other end of campus, don't stop. If it's a book day, have your book in your backpack. If you need to use the restroom, come to my class, go over the agenda, use the bathroom pass, and run to use the restroom during class to eliminate the need to get a tardy. Okay. Discipline, typical misbehaviors, talking when you shouldn't be talking, just kind of goofing off. I'll give you the death stare, or maybe I'll come stand next to you. But if it's happening a bunch and you're just kind of being disrespectful, I may totally call you out on it. I'm not the type of teacher that pulls students aside to quietly tell them I don't appreciate their behavior. That's just not my style. If I happen to call a student out in class, it's never personal. I just want to get back to the lesson, and I want to encourage you and other students to keep the learning environment cool, so other people can learn. So never take that personally. And typically, if I have to kick a student out of class for behavior, I'll pull them aside at the beginning of the next class they're back and say, hey, it's not personal. Let's just get past this. Not a big deal. Hopefully you can get over it. I'm over it. But at the same time, don't do it again. Because the same result will happen, and eventually I'm just simply going to get a parent and a vice principal and or the principal and a counselor in a room to figure out what the heck is going on. So keep it cool. If you're caught throwing things, especially things with sharp points like a pen or a pencil, that really makes me angry because that is risking the safety of other students. Don't throw things. Don't draw on the tables. I have to wash those things myself every couple weeks. If you need to doodle on something, grab a piece of scratch paper. I've always got scratch paper. Please keep the environment and the learning surfaces, the tables, clean. And if I catch you writing on something, I might have you come in at lunch and wipe down all the tables to avoid getting a detention. Okay, so please just be on your best behavior. Let's see. Sometimes I'll need to get the VP involved. Sometimes I'll need to get your parents involved. Hopefully it never gets to that point. But it's not to get anybody in trouble. It's simply to make sure that we can keep the learning environment clean and we can ensure that everybody's got a good opportunity to learn in my class and to have fun in my class, because that's a big part of it too. All right, academic grades, 30% of your points are going to be on participation, binder checks, homework. You'll have reading notes, you'll have class notes, video worksheets, stuff like that. Tests. Tests are basically an assessment. Sometimes I even consider big time labs an assessment because it's really assessing how well you know the material. But basically, tests, finals, and quizzes are going to be about 40%. And then activities and labs. You will have some lab reports. You will have some labs that have discussion questions. Those are typically worth a few more points, 30%. Finals typically going to be 10 to 15% of the grade. Finals are different in points each year because I have different point values each year. But let's just say you have 300 points and we're at the end of the semester, then your finals probably going to be between 30 and 40 points. And if it's a situation where it's a 50 question test, my finals typically are 50 questions, and it's 40 points. That means that each question is going to be worth, I think, 0.8 is how I do that. All right, homework and assignments. My class is not a hard class. There aren't a whole lot of hard, difficult concepts, but you will need to be organized. We do a lot of work in my class, and there are due dates that you need to pay attention to. You're going to have reading notes. I'll assign those. They're going to be turned in Google Classroom, although some of you guys are going to turn your reading notes in class, which is fine. Movie worksheets, lab worksheets, discussion questions, lab reports. I'll teach you how to do that. Workbook pages. You will always be doing some reading notes and your workbook pages. There will always be those assigned. You probably aren't going to get the chapter 1 assigned because we got some other stuff we got to do, scientific notation, metric system, scientific method, but I probably won't assign your chapter 1 reading notes and workbook pages until the 3rd week. I'm recording the video today on the first day of school, so this is the first week, so probably won't even be until the week after next week. But there are due dates. I will be sharing the due dates in Google Classroom. If it's to be turned in there, I'll be sharing the due dates on the board. I'll show you what that looks like. And then additionally, I'll be sending home emails that'll tell you when things are due. All right, let's see. Specific due date. They're due at the beginning of the class. If it's a Google Classroom assignment, they're going to be due at midnight. I'm pretty cool with things being turned in 15, 20 minutes late in Google Classroom. But if it's much later than that, or if it's turned in the following day, my policy is half credit. If it's an assignment that's turned in class, I have boxes up in the front of the room. I'll give about 5 to 7 minutes while you guys are working on your warm up and while we're doing the agenda. And after I make last call and I pull the papers out, I put them over in my inbox. If I see papers in there after that point, that is considered late, and that is half credit. Best way to avoid losing points for late work is turn in partial work. If you've got 2/3 of it done and you did a good job, you're going to get 2/3 of a point. Whereas if you waited 5 to 10 minutes or a day to finish it up, the max you can get is 50%. Turn in partially done work. Trust me. It'll all those extra points that you don't lose throughout the year will totally add up. But that's my policy is half credit on late work. If you know you're going to be absent and you know it in advance, please get in touch with me. It's very possible I can get you that work in advance. Worst case, I can I'll give you an alternate assignment, send you a link to a website, send you a link to a video to watch. But please get in touch with me in advance. Additionally, if you know that you're going to need some more time on an assignment because you got injured or you have a family emergency, please get in touch with me before it's due. So, for example, if something's due on a Friday and you can email me on Thursday and say, Paulus, I'm overwhelmed. I've got, 2 tests tomorrow, or, my grandma's sick. Whatever the case may be, if you can tell me a day or two in advance, I'm much more likely to be flexible and give you extra time. Whereas if you come up to me at the beginning of class on Friday and say, Mr. Paulus, I wasn't able to get the assignment done last night. I got a lot of stuff going on right now. It's likely that I won't be flexible. And I don't like having those conversations in front of other students because if I say yes to you, then everybody's going to assume that I'm going to say yes to them. Those should be private conversations. Come in before school, come in during the morning break, come in at lunch, send me an email, whatever the case may be. But if you can get those questions to me in advance, you're much more likely to get flexibility. Okay. I take it very personally, teaching freshmen, to get you guys ready for the harder classes, especially the harder science classes. So I really want to train you to become organized and train you on kind of the ethics involved in the student teacher relationship. Lots of teachers like to be flexible, but there's the very, very fine line between being flexible for a student who deserves it and being flexible for a student who's just being lazy. So I take those things very seriously. It is the responsibility of you to ensure that you're aware of any missed assignment. Of course, best case scenarios, if you're absent, send me an email. Or if you have a sibling or a friend on campus, maybe have them stop by during the morning break or have them stop by at lunch. It's very possible I can give them an assignment to turn over to you. Some things I have electronically. I can just email it to you. You can print it at home. You can work on it. Worst case, if you're absent, say on a Thursday and you show up on a Friday, I would give you the assignment that you missed, and then you would have one day, which would be basically the weekend, to turn it in. If you're absent 2 days, you would get 2 days to turn things in. Although there are some assignments that really don't take a whole lot of time. So if you're absent for 2 days and I'm giving you a crossword puzzle, which is 15 or 20 minutes worth of work, I'm going to expect you to turn it in the next day. But I will tell you what those due dates are. So please pay attention to when you're going to be missing time, and please contact your teachers as soon as you can to get that missed work. If you're absent for 3, 4, 5 days or a week or two, and you wait to ask all your teachers for that missing work until you get back, you are going to be buried. Use email, use your resources on campus, friends, siblings, to come and get that work for you in advance. Labs. We don't do a whole lot of really complex labs in biology, but if we do have a lab that requires setup, I'm not going to be able to send you home with the equipment to do the lab. In many cases, I'll just give you an opportunity to do some research. In some circumstances, I'll just give you some data that you can use to answer the discussion questions. So do understand that if you miss a lab, it's possible you might be able to make it up. It is sometimes appropriate, in my opinion, to just simply double the next lab. So if we have a lab that isn't too complex and we're going to do another one next week that isn't too complex, sometimes I'll just give you a 0 on the first one and then I'll double the points on the next one. So you'll have that 0 for a week, but I'll go and I'll take the points and whatever the percentage of those points are and I'll apply it back to the previous lab. but I'll tell you that in advance if that's how I'm going to handle it. There are many circumstances where I'm going to have you guys bring your book. Maybe it's to you're going to have some free time. And I want you to work on a study guide, or maybe you're going to have some free time and I want you to work on your reading notes, or maybe it's a crossword puzzle race. Many times I'll allow you and the person sitting next to you to race against other students or other pairs. Sometimes it'll be whole tables, but in some circumstances, you're going to need your book. We're in a unique situation this year to where we have a new book, and pretty much all of the biology teachers are not happy with this new book. It's not nearly as good as the one we've been using. So many of the biology teachers chose to keep some of the books from the last 6-7 years to use those. I will look for opportunities to integrate this new book and the new content into my curriculum, but I'm not just going to completely replace what I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years in 1 year. So every student will be assigned a book, and it will be a specific number. Now, when there's an opportunity for you to bring in your book, you can get extra credit for bringing it in. I would prefer that you just leave that book in class, and that way, whenever you need your book, it's here. Your book being in your locker does not count. If you need to use the pass to go get your book, you will not get the extra credit for bringing your book. So we'll talk about this more later. My eventual plan is to all of the reading that I want you to do out of the old book. I'm planning on copying those and then scanning them and creating PDFs and then putting those in Google Classroom so you can actually access that way, and you won't have to bring your book home. And of course, there's less chance of losing your book or damaging your book. If you happen to lose your book, or somebody breaks into a car and steals your backpack, whatever the case may be, I plan on using those over the next couple years. You will not get your letter grade until you replace that book. You can probably find those out on eBay used in decent condition for, I don't know, probably between 10 and 25 bucks. And if that's what it takes to get your letter grade instead of an incomplete, that's what you're going to have to do. I'll collect them back at the end of the semester. I'll reassign them out at the beginning of the next semester. So if you happen to change teachers, I will have my book. So please be careful with them. It's best to leave them in class. We'll get into more about that later. Binder check. We'll probably have to catch up on the assignment numbers once I get back into the classroom. My plan is to be back on Thursday the 25th. Rehabbing my hip replacement's going really, really well. I should be able to do most of the things that I normally would in a classroom by that time. But normally there will be an assignment number for an assignment, and you have to put that assignment number. Usually there's a space on the handouts that I've created. You'll put the assignment number on it, or you'll have to write ASSN, whatever it is. I think when I come in on the weekends to get some work done, I'll probably put the assignment numbers up for the entire week. So when you happen to be doing something in class, take a look at the front board. AP Environmental Science will be on the left, Biology will be on the right, and you'll record the assignment number. But like I said, we might just have to get caught up on the first 10 assignments or so once I get back to the classroom and have a chance to return your work. But binder checks are basically 3 points for being organized. Now, I don't want to say they're extra credit, but if you do most of your assignments and you turn in most of your assignments, even if it's turned in late, binder checks are 3 points. They're basically just for you keeping organized, not losing things. Now, if you're a very unorganized student and you just throw stuff in your backpack and you don't keep stuff in a binder, et cetera, you could get penalized pretty heavily on binder checks. So we'll do 6 of them. We'll do 3 a semester. I'm usually pretty flexible on the first one because everybody's kind of learning how to be successful in my class. But the bottom line is don't ever throw anything away until the end of the semester and you get your final semester grade. Don't ever throw anything away, and make sure that your name is on things, because if your name isn't on things and you happen to be absent the day that I'm showing people the work that doesn't have names on it, you may never end up getting it back, and that will hurt you on a binder check. All right, so about every 6 weeks, which is about a third of the semester, take a look at all this. You'll get 2 or 3 days to get your binders organized. You'll score them in class. It'll become second nature, being organized in my class for those of you that care about that type of thing. Copying and cheating. I am pretty hardcore when it comes to this. My class is not a difficult one. You got to be organized and you'll be busy, but really the content isn't all that complicated. Um, Really bothers me when I see people cheating off of one another. There are some opportunities where there are discussion questions from a lab that'll allow you as a table to talk about what you think the answer should be, because that provides an opportunity to get explanation to some students that maybe aren't as clear with it. But my expectation is if you're talking about what you think the answer is or should be, that you're all then looking down at your own papers and writing that explanation in your own words. That is a learning opportunity, and I'm cool with that. But I'll tell you when I'm cool with that. What I'm not okay with is like, oh, you totally have the best understanding at this table of anybody, so how about you just write it down and we all write down what you wrote. Trust me, I read your answers. I know how people speak. I know how people write, and it's real easy to see when somebody is using somebody else's words. In that case, both students, the person who wrote it and the person who copied it, will get punished. So please, if you're concerned about your grade and you're proud of your, um, um, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know what word I'm looking for. If you're proud that you're a good student and that you work really really hard, avoid those situations. If somebody needs help and they don't understand something, they can come to me and I can help them through it. Crossword puzzles, workbook pages, things that are really easy to copy off of one another. If I see that happen in front of me, both the papers get torn up and thrown in the recycle bin, which means not only do you not get points for the assignment, but you will not get credit for it on the binder check. If you're going to do that crap, don't do it in my classroom. Also, if I see my students out in the quad or sitting at a table sharing work, expect me to walk up and find out what you're doing. I will gladly take papers from students, even if they're not in front of me. Okay, do your own work. It's going to benefit you in the long run. It's going to make you a better student. It's going to help you get ready for the tests more easily. Just please keep it clean. Testing. We'll have two quizzes, which are basically shorter versions of a unit test, and we'll have, well, I think 4 or 5 unit tests. You'll have a final for the fall, a final for the spring. You will get a study guide for every single test. You'll usually get that study guide a week in advance, so you'll have an opportunity to look up all the answers and start to memorize it. You will get an opportunity to retake my unit tests. Okay, in my AP Environmental Science, I forgot to change this, but I will allow any student to retake any of my unit tests, not the quizzes, any of the unit tests, if they choose to do so. And we'll get to test retakes in just a second. I think I might have put in here that you only get to do 1 or 2. If you want to spend your personal time demonstrating to me and demonstrating to yourself and maybe your parents that you learn the content to get some of those points back, I am there for you. Okay, maybe you just had a rough week and you didn't have time to get ready for the test. I get it. That happens to everybody. And maybe if you have another opportunity to spend a little bit more time with the content, you can do better. And I'm totally down with that. Study guides will be created for each test. They're free points. They're extra credit. Additionally, we'll play Jeopardy, which is a kind of an electronic review where tables will get to compete against other tables for extra credit points. Test retakes. Okay, I might have said you only have a certain number of them. So we have a quiz on mitosis and meiosis. We also have a quiz on ecology. They're really short parts of the book. Those you will not be able to retake. They won't be nearly as many points as the actual unit tests themselves. So the way that test retakes go, and I explain it here. So if we have a 50-point test and you lose 20 points, you can retake the test and get up to half of those missed points back. So you could turn that 30 into a 40, and a 30 is a D minus. A 40 is a B minus. There are some things that you will have to do, though. Typically, I give students about a week to do test corrections. You'll have to come in, you'll have to write down every question that you missed, you'll have to write down what the correct answer is, and you'll have to finish that by a certain period of time. So, like, for example, if we take a test on a Friday and I show you your grade on Monday, you'll have until Friday to get the test corrections done. Additionally, you have to do the study guide. Now, if you already did the study guide, the entire thing, you're golden. Not a big deal. If you didn't do the study guide or if you didn't finish it, you have to do it and you have to finish it Also, that is by the day you retake the test. The reason why the study guides are important is because you got to retake the entire test. The test corrections, yes, which you get to take home, so you can study every question that you missed and what the answers are. Those are for the questions you missed. The study guide handles the questions you got right the first time because you got to retake the entire test. So you got to do the study guide, and then of course you got to show up the day for the retake. So, like for example, if I show you your grade on your test on a Monday, you have till Friday to do test corrections. The study guide you need to bring to the test on Monday, and you got to show up Monday. Usually, it's a situation where you'll show up before school on Monday, and you'll start it and you'll finish it at lunch, or you show up at lunch and you'll finish it after school, or if you have a really good reason, you can do the entire thing after school. But I usually like students to do it in pieces so I don't have to stick around for an hour after school. If you don't show up for the test, and if you're absent that day, I get it. We'll work it out. But if you're in class that day and you don't show up to do the test, or if you don't do the study guide, or if you don't finish the study guide, or if you don't do the test corrections and get them done on time, you will not be able to retake the test, and I will deduct 5% off of your original score. So let's go back to that 30-point test. So if you got a 30 out of 50 points, 5% of 50 points is 2.5. I would change that 30 to a 27.5. I am making myself available for you. There are a few steps that I have to do to get these things ready for you. And if you disrespect me by not following through on your end, not only will you lose the opportunity to retake that test, but you will lose some points off your original score. So if your parents are forcing you to do this and your heart's not in it, you need to talk your parents out of it. Okay. But these are opportunities for you to do better in the class. These are opportunities to prove to me, yourself, and your parents that you can do better, and I will make myself available for you. Okay, taking the final, like I said before, if you have 97% or higher with no extra credit, pretty much the extra credit are bring in your book on book days, study guides are extra credit, and then the review Jeopardy games are extra credit. There aren't really a whole lot of other opportunities for extra credit in my class. So if you are killing it on your assignments, if you don't miss a lot of points on your assignments, if you do well on your tests, you might have an opportunity to be excused from the final. All right, safety. There aren't a whole lot of labs in this class where we're using equipment that could cause a safety concern. I will let you know the labs and the equipment that could cause a safety concern. But basically, if you're being a knucklehead and you're putting your health or safety in danger and or the health or safety of other students, I'm going to take that personally. Usually you'll get a verbal warning. And then if it happens again, you're out of the class. You're going to go sit outside the VP's office while everybody else finishes up the lab. You will not lose the opportunity to get the points for that lab. I'll probably have you do some research. That's not fair to hit you academically for that. But yeah, if you're being stupid, you're not going to get to stick around. I like my classroom really cool. I like the learning environment, very supportive. I like my labs to run smoothly. It really makes it easier for students to understand the point of the content. Cursing, F word, uncool, S word, uncool. You may not think of this as being a bad word, but I take it very seriously because I've got friends who choose an alternative lifestyle, never use the word gay, or never use the word fag in my class. I take that very personally. You might argue gay means happy in some contexts. Don't use that word. I want to make sure everybody feels valued and welcome in my classroom. And if you try to destroy that by saying stuff you shouldn't be saying, I'm going to remove you from the room. And if it's serious and it's directed at somebody, it'll probably result in a meeting with the administration, your counselor, and your parents. Keep it cool in my classroom. Now, if you accidentally drop the F-bomb and it's not being directed towards somebody, I'll probably look the other way, or at least I'll probably get your attention and say, hey, that's not cool. But if it's directed at somebody and or it's derogatory towards somebody, then I'll take it personally and you'll see a side of me you don't ever want to see. Keep it cool, keep it mellow in my classroom. I would prefer that you don't use that type of vocabulary in your lives in general, but I understand, what teenagers are like. I just raised two of them myself. I get it. but keep it really, really cool when it comes to the cursing. Usually it's, if it's just, a harmless event, I'll warn you. And if it happens again, same day, you might get a detention. Maybe I'll let you serve a lunch detention if I think that it was, harmless. But just keep your language clean. Destruction of property. If you destroy anything, any of my tools that students have access to in the class or any equipment from a lab, I do reserve the right to hold your grade and give you an incomplete. Incompletes will not get you graduation until you have replaced it. Now, if you drop a beaker by accident or if you drop a test tube by accident, that's not a big deal. That stuff's cheap. But there are some things that I've purchased from my classroom using Science Boosters money that I don't want to have to replace, that I shouldn't have to replace as long as you're using them and using them appropriately. So I will let you know when there are things that you need to be careful with, and as long as you're paying attention and you're being respectful for that equipment, you'll be just fine. Okay, so that's really the end of the content of this. You will keep this. I would encourage you to keep it in your binder. You're simply going to tear off the last page of this. Make sure it's real easy to read your printed name because that's how I'm going to give you points. This is actually considered an assignment. I'll need your signature and then whatever date you sign it. If you and or your parents or guardians choose to provide me with email addresses, you will be the most informed students on campus. I promise you that. Every email that I get from anybody on campus or anybody off campus about things that are happening on campus in the Rio community, in the classroom community, or in the Carmichael Art and Arcade, College Greens, College Glen community, I share. I really like providing students and families opportunities to become more involved. And the way that I look at it is it's better to have access to the information and choose not to use it than never have it in the first place. So if you are interested in receiving not only information about my class, how to be successful, reminders about things, about reminders about homework deadlines, et cetera, what's going on sports-wise, what's going on with Rio Band, what's going on with anything on campus, PTSA newsletter, please make sure that you write your email legibly. Make sure it's real easy for me to see that a 0 looks like a 0 and not the letter O. That an L is like an L and not the number 1. Make sure that an underscore is really obvious. Make sure that a dash is really obvious. If you do that, you'll start getting all of this information and it'll really help you stay organized, at least in my class. This is not mandatory. Okay, you providing that information is not mandatory. I appreciate it. It's just a real easy way to communicate with you. It's an easy way for you to communicate back with me. I understand some of you may live in 2 different places or multiple places. It's not mandatory to have, one guardian at one location and one guardian in another location sign it. I just need a printed name and signature from one of your guardians or your parents. Although, if you do have, if you live with your dad, sometimes, and you live with your mom sometimes, they probably both would appreciate an opportunity to know what's going on in your high school lives. They probably both would want to provide an email. This also is not mandatory. Now, maybe, your parents or your guardians start getting all these emails and they realize it's a little bit overwhelming. I always can remove them. That's never a problem. But again, it's better to have access to information and choose that you don't need it or you don't want it versus never knowing what you're missing in the first place. So I would really encourage multiple family members from giving me their email addresses. Make sure to remind them that, because parents, some of them have, really fast handwriting because we've been doing it for years. Please remind them that it's necessary for me to be able to read the email. So what I'll do is after I get all these entered, usually it takes me about a week to enter them into my distribution list. I'll send out a test email, and then inevitably a bunch of them are going to bounce back because they weren't delivered because the email address doesn't exist. Normally, I'll go back to the signed page and see if I made an obvious mistake. Sometimes I'll call that student up and say, hey, do you happen to know what your mom or dad's email address is? It bounced back. Some cases I'll even actually call a parent to get the email address. But it's a very valuable tool. I've had parents of other students that know parents of my students request to get this information. I've had students that have me as a freshman ask to get this information their sophomore, junior, and senior year until they graduate, simply because they find value in knowing what's going on campus, because they can become more involved in what is going on campus. So I don't remember exactly when you're going to be given this syllabus, but you will have a due date. If you get it turned in by the due date, you get full credit. If you turn it in after the due date, you start to lose points. And hopefully it doesn't take a long time for you to turn it in after the due date, because I have had to threaten students with detention or lunch detention if they're just not getting it signed. This is mandatory, signing this. You don't have to give me the email, but it is mandatory that you agree to my class rules. And if you don't like them, you can go take another biology teacher, but I really hope you make the decision to stay in my class. Nothing here is extreme, short of the cell phone policy. And I really look forward to seeing you guys in a couple weeks. If you have any questions for me, send me an email. My email address is apaulus@sanjuan.edu. And I will see you when I see you.